Ah yes, the #1 Pathan fan. And I don't mean you or me, but I know some of you are up there. I'm talking about Vivian, the newest Ether Anomaly DPS that will be released as of posting this. In this video, I'll be going over everything you need to know about Vivian, from her build, to her teams, to her combat rotation. There's a lot to cover here, so let's talk about Vivian Banshee. First off, let's explain who Vivian is. Other than being the #1 Pathan sim, she's an Ether Anomaly DPS from the newest faction that she and future characters will be a part of, the Mockingbird faction. As she is an Anomaly DPS, she'll need as much Anomaly proficiency and Anomaly mastery as possible. One of the biggest ways she'll gain her Anomaly proficiency and her Anomaly mastery is from her W engine choices. Let's start with one of the obvious ones here, her signature W engine, Flight of Fancy. At level 60, Vivian's signature W engine gives you plus 90 Anomaly proficiency and 713 base attack. While the Anomaly proficiency is already a significant increase from her other options, she also gains a 40% Anomaly buildup rate and up to 120% more Anomaly proficiency when Vivian deals ether damage. The real winner of this W engine is the 40% Anomaly buildup rate. Vivian needs attribute Anomaly procs in order to trigger a bloom. I'll get into what a bloom is in a bit, but it is such a significant increase in how fast she is able to apply the corruption attribute anomaly compared to the other options. Although her W engine is basically a living cheat code, her other options are also very viable and probably more accessible to the free-to-play player like the majority of people who play this game. Grace's W engine, Fusion Compiler, is one of the few S-rank W engines that I actually recommend. It has very good base stats compared to A-rank options, as it has 24% pen ratio on top of a 12% attack boost and up to 75 Anomaly proficiency if you have all stacks. With so many stat boosts, you can probably tell why I recommend this one. For the A-rank options, I suggest using either Electro Lip Gloss or Weeping Gemini. Electro Lip Gloss gives plus 75 Anomaly proficiency, 10% attack boost, and a flat 15% more damage to the enemy when enemies suffer from an attribute anomaly. The main thing about this W engine is that you have to buy the battle pass to unlock it. If you can get the battle pass, then 100% go for this option if you can't get Vivian's signature W engine. The last W engine that I recommend is the Weeping Gemini, as at max overclock, it gives 48 Anomaly proficiency every time an attribute anomaly is triggered. It can stack up to 4 times, but resets when the enemy recovers from a stun or just dies. This W engine can be found at the W engine store and can be easily overclocked to max. This W engine is the most free-to-play friendly option and is my recommendation to those who cannot afford to get the battle pass W engine or Vivian's signature W engine. Now, moving on to her drive discs, I highly recommend Pathan's Melody. There is no better option for her 4-piece set other than Pathan's Melody, as the 2-piece set gives her 8% Anomaly Mastery, which Vivian really needs. The 4-piece set increases Vivian's Anomaly proficiency by 45 for 8 seconds when anyone in your squad uses an EX special attack. If another person in your squad other than Vivian uses an EX special attack, Vivian will gain 25% more ether damage. This drive disc was essentially made for her exact kit and should not be compromised. As for the 2-piece set, I suggest running either Freedom Blues or Chaos Jazz. Both increase Anomaly proficiency by 30, so whichever one has better substats, you should definitely use. The only other 2-piece set I'd recommend running is Puffer Electro, but only if your substats consist of very high Anomaly proficiency. Look for main stats on your Disc 4, 5, and 6. Disc 4 should always be Anomaly proficiency. Disc 5 can be either damage bonus, attack percentage, or pen ratio percent. And for Disc 6, you should have Anomaly mastery. Substat wise, you should be going for as much Anomaly proficiency as possible, as all of your drive discs have a chance of getting Anomaly proficiency as a substat, except for Disc 5, which Anomaly proficiency is a main stat. Other decent substats to get are attack percentage and pen ratio percentage. Now that you know how to build your Vivian, let's move on to talk about her skills. It's really insane how ZZZ is able to make these characters have the most confusing and insanely long skill explanation. Hopefully I can help you guys understand Vivian's kit better so you guys don't end up playing her wrong. The first thing I want to cover is Vivian's core skill, as this is what makes Vivian, well, Vivian, and not just another Bernice. I'll be referring to it mostly as a bloom, something I talked about earlier. The short explanation is a bloom is an extra damage trigger that occurs when anyone in your squad applies attribute anomaly, or uses an EX special as long as the enemy was already suffering from an attribute anomaly beforehand. And now, the long explanation is that when someone in your squad uses an EX special or applies attribute anomaly, it triggers Vivian's basic attack, Feather Bloom. Triggering Feather Bloom requires one of your guard feathers. Now there are 2 types of feathers. One is called a flight feather and the other is called a guard feather. Vivian gains these flight feathers while on the field and basically using any of her skills. When Vivian gains these flight feathers, she can activate an extra basic attack called Fluttering Frock. When Fluttering Frock is activated, you will become suspended in air until you press the basic attack button again. While in the aerial state, every flight feather you gain from using Vivian's skill will be consumed and grant you 1 guard feather for each one that is consumed. These guard feathers are what is needed to trigger your feather bloom, which is also needed to trigger your bloom. You can only hold 5 feathers at a time, so just be conscious about that. For those wondering how a bloom is calculated, you take the elemental attribute ratio of Vivian's core skill, you multiply it by Vivian's attribute proficiency, and you also multiply it by the amount of anomaly damage that was inflicted. This means a bloom does more damage with characters who deal very high damage through attribute anomaly. An example, Jane Doe. Vivian's additional ability, aka the team up bonus, is what allows attribute anomaly to trigger a bloom. It also gives 12% more corruption damage to all allies and increases the disorder damage of corruption. One last thing I want to mention about Vivian's core skill is Vivian's prophecy. When feather bloom hits a target, ether damage over time is applied to the enemy. The damage over time is equal to 55% of Vivian's attack every 0.55 seconds, and only ends when the enemy is either defeated or no longer afflicted with attribute anomaly. Considering Vivian will always be paired with another anomaly type agent, you'll constantly have an attribute anomaly up at all times, meaning that this damage over time is almost permanent damage. Her EX special, Violet Requiem, is a strong forward attack that deals ether damage and grants 3 flight feathers. Not only does she gain flight feathers, but she can also enter her aerial state immediately after and consume those feathers into guard feathers. During her EX special, she is also invulnerable. Her chain attack works almost the same way as her EX special does, except it only gives you 2 flight feather stacks instead of 3. As for her ultimate, Soaring Bird Song, it deals massive damage to a large area of enemies in front of you and will give you 5 flight feathers. This caps you at max feathers, so you should try to use her ultimate right after consuming a large amount of guard feathers. On the screen, I'll give you guys the recommendation for what you should level first for skill priority. The major ones you should be looking at are her core skill and her basic attack, as that's kind of where quite literally all her damage is. I'm briefly going to go over her gameplay loop just so everyone can have a visual aid. If you've ever played with Bernice, then you should have a good idea of how Vivian works. Since all of Vivian's actions will gain her flight feathers, your main goal is to gain those feathers as fast as possible, and then switch to your main anomaly DPS, an example Jane, Yanagi, or Miyabi, and apply attribute anomaly with those agents. Vivian's playstyle is very off-field and reliant on another on-field agent to get the most out of her. When playing with Astra, just enter her singing form and forget about her. Astra gives a lot of value to Vivian due to her giving free quick assists and on-demand switch between Vivian and, in this case, Jane. So here's the thing. Using Vivian's basic attack 4 times will trigger something called Noblewoman's Waltz, which basically gives Vivian another flight feather, and during Noblewoman Waltz, she can also activate her aerial state. All you need to remember is to gain flight feathers, use Vivian's aerial to get guard feathers, switch to your other anomaly DPS, and apply attribute anomaly. You want to pay attention to how many feathers you have, and switch to Vivian to refresh the amount you have while using your EX special and your ultimate as much as you can. As another note, when Vivian is airborne, you can start the animation of her aerial attack and switch to another agent to start DPSing. Vivian will complete her aerial attack and gain guard feathers while the other agent is on field. You should always swap during the aerial attack so you're not losing out on free damage. Now that we've gone over Vivian's skills and how to play her, it's now time to move on to her teams. Something ZZZ does well in, and something that I love, is that they are somehow able to make every character flow and play so well together, and Vivian is no exception. Vivian's teams are very straightforward. If you've had any Bernice teams in the past, then you will have a Vivian team. I do want to note that for all the teams that will be listed, they will all be using the new Robin Bang Boot, which is the Mockingbird faction Bang Boot. For support units, the undeniable best agent currently for Vivian is Astra Yao. Astra has been the best support ever since her release, and it still holds true here. Astra Yao provides so much utility in her cadenza state by giving a damage bonus and providing quick assists. On top of that, her being an ether element agent provides extra anomaly buildup for Vivian to trigger corruption. The problem with Astra being so good is that she's basically wanted in every team composition. So if you don't want to run Astra with Vivian, because there are some other teams you want to put Astra on, there are many options that can actually serve the same purpose. As Vivian is a sub-anomaly DPS, that'll mean you want someone that's on field in the main anomaly DPS. And the best options for Vivian are Miyabi, Jane, and Yanagi. The best team at this current moment is Astra, Vivian, and Jane. Jane provides very high physical assault attribute anomaly damage, meaning that Vivian's Bloom will in consequence deal really high damage. So when we're trying to get the most value out of Vivian and her Bloom, Jane is most definitely the best choice. If you don't have Astra, Caesar King is also a very good choice in this composition. She provides good defense and applies a debuff to the enemies, making them take 25% more damage from the allies. Something else to mention, in conjunction to Vivian's banner, Jane will also be available as the secondary S-rank banner during the first half of patch 1.7. This makes it super accessible to those that need some kind of anomaly character for Vivian. Highly recommended. Now, if you guys were one of the fortunate people who rolled on Miyabi's banner, I'm happy to tell you guys that Vivian works very well with Miyabi. So although Vivian's Bloom damage might be lower, Miyabi and Vivian synergize very well for triggering disorder and giving Miyabi her Fallen Frost stacks, which allows her to activate her enhanced basic attack more often. If you don't have Astra, either Nicole or Sukaku work great with Miyabi and Vivian. Nicole can provide extra ether damage for Vivian and reduces the enemy's defense by 40% for 3.5 seconds. Sukaku provides a lot of buffs that Miyabi can take advantage of, so she's also a very good choice. On to the last anomaly DPS that I recommend. Yanagi provides great damage through her shock anomaly and increased disorder disorder damage. Now, I'm not the best Yanagi player ever, but even I could get good value out of Yanagi with Vivian on the team. Since Vivian does not require a lot of field time, it gives Yanagi a lot of time to shine. The Bloom damage also applied is comparable to that of Jane's, but obviously not as high. If you're not able to run Astra with Yanagi and Vivian, you can either run Seth or Rina. Rina provides good pen ratio and provides extra electric damage for Yanagi. Seth provides more survivability and a 20% reduction to all enemies' anomaly build-up resistance. Rina is definitely the better option here, but Seth can still work if you have neither Rina or Astra. And now, one of the last teams I want to go over is Vivian's free-to-play team, consisting of Piper and Lucy. Vivian is able to replace Bernice in this composition and synergizes well with both of them. Piper is not a bad free-to-play option as she provides something that Vivian needs: an anomaly character that requires a lot of field time and does massive anomaly damage. Piper doesn't build anomaly as fast as other agents, but she can still be very good when combined with Vivian. For supports, Astra cannot be slotted in unless you want to lose Piper's team-up bonus. If you have Caesar King, you can slot out Lucy for Caesar, but other than that, it's more beneficial for Lucy to be on your team with this certain composition. Lucy isn't even that bad, she's actually really good if you can build her towards attack and anomaly proficiency, as other characters will inherit her stats. The only problem with Lucy in this composition specifically is the fact that she is fire element, meaning that she won't contribute to neither Vivian nor Piper's attribute anomaly buildup. These are all the teams that I recommend. There are teams that I didn't mention but can still work, like a Vivian, Bernice, and Astra composition. If you have Vivian at a higher Mindscape level, it could work very well, and I'll talk about that more in the Mindscape section. Speaking of Mindscapes, let's talk about Vivian's Mindscape cinemas. Just to preface this section, I'll be skipping over Mindscape Cinemas 3 and 5 as they are just +2 skill upgrades, which is consistent on all characters. Vivian's Mindscapes are honestly way easier to explain than her skills, I'm not gonna lie. Well, maybe except for her M6. Vivian's M1, walking into the orchard in spring, when a total of 4 guard feathers are consumed, gain 1 flight feather. On top of that, all attribute anomaly damage and disorder damage received by targets under Vivian's prophecy increases by 16%. This may not seem like a lot, but trust me, this Mindscape is actually pretty strong. Your feather economy becomes less of a problem with this Mindscape Cinema, and not only that, but since the enemy will almost always be under Vivian's prophecy, all of your damage will essentially be a permanent 16% damage increase. Moving on to M2, Stormy Night, Vivian's ether anomaly build-up rate is increased by 25%. The benefits of a bloom from anomaly proficiency is raised to 130% of the original value, and 15% of the target's all attribute res is ignored. This Mindscape has the benefit of not only raising Vivian's already absurd anomaly build-up rate, but also giving a bloom even more damage. Her M4, the wind between the reeds, when using Fluttering Frock or Feather Bloom, the abilities will always crit on hit and increase Vivian's attack by 12%. When entering battle, Vivian immediately gains 5 guard feathers. Now, the question that arises if you have this Mindscape is, should you build for crit damage, since you are always critting these hits? The answer is partially yes. You should not sacrifice your anomaly proficiency just to go for crit damage. But when going for substats for Vivian, having some crit damage substats over none is always better. This Mindscape, although very good, pales in comparison to her M6, which is literally just called Vivian. Vivian's ether damage increases by 40%. When triggering a perfect dodge, during basic attack Noblewoman's Waltz, or using Violate Requiem, you gain 1 additional flight feather. Launching your aerial attack consumes all guard feathers and the downward attack's area effect increases, and upon hit triggers a special instance of a bloom. Each additional guard feather consumed will increase the proportion of additional anomaly damage dealt by that instance of a bloom, consuming a maximum of 5 guard feathers to increase the damage up to a maximum of 5 times the original. Now, I know that's a loaded Mindscape. So first off, free 40% ether damage buff, which it's pretty good. It's 40%, that's so much. You also gain more feathers from doing your EX special attack and basic attack combo. The biggest change is how Vivian's aerial attack works. She herself will now consume all guard feathers upon use of her aerial attack and apply a bloom to all targets within the area. This is a Mindscape Cinema 6 for a reason. This Mindscape can basically change her passive off-field playstyle into more of an aggressive on-field playstyle. Being able to consume her own feathers and apply a bloom gives room for someone like Bernice to provide a ton of support to Vivian. Vivian will rarely run out of feathers, and you will gain a ton of feathers before you can even use her aerial attack. I think the best part about this Mindscape in general is the fact that you aren't confined to one way of playing here to get value. If you want to run a different on-field anomaly DPS and have Vivian play the off-field role, that's just fine. But you can also run someone like Bernice and have Vivian be on-field much more. I'm honestly a fan of Vivian being on-field a lot. Both ways are very comparable in damage, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, I want to make a section here at the end dedicated to what I think Vivian's pull value is compared to other characters. Not only that, but what you should be prioritizing after pulling for Vivian. First of all, I think Vivian is an insanely good character. Not only that, but if you do have her W engine, she becomes one of the best anomaly DPSs ever. Without it, she's just as good as like Bernice. Her W engine is so ridiculously good, not having it is like a 15% decrease in damage, if not more compared to her other options. And if you already have Bernice and her W engine, it might not entirely be worth worth investing into Vivian, unless you can get her W engine as well. But let's say you have a character like Jane and no Bernice. Then yes, I'd say 100% go for Vivian, as having a supportive Anomaly DPS like Vivian does wonders for a character like Jane, who is all damage. Personally, I love Vivian and her design, so I'll be rolling for her anyway. If you have no Anomaly DPS to run with Vivian, just remember, Jane is also out at the same time as Vivian's banner, so you can always pick up Jane and Vivian together. If you're gonna roll for Vivian and her copies, I highly suggest going for her W engine first before rolling for any copies of her. And I'll be so for real, all of Vivian's Mindscapes are really, really good. Her M2 is an insane increase from her M0. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys found this guide helpful in any way. If you guys have any questions or want to correct me on anything, just let me know in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe. I'll be making much more content like this in the future, so stay tuned for further characters. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.